Hello, people. Welcome back to another comments video by your good friend Chad Marco. Make sure you guys check out my other social media. Follow me on Instagram, on X, support the Patreon, and let's get to it. So these are some older comments actually that I never got around to, so I'm not necessarily caught up. I promise to get caught up very soon. But I had these sitting around and I never got around to them, so it's gonna be interesting seeing like which ones I plucked out here. So let's see. Okay, MAGA versus Musk. Okay. So Not Saying says on the MAGA versus Musk video, you can tell this was a while ago, they're going to be pretty disappointed. There's some smart people in India, but their standards and practices for both education and business is very different from how we do things in the West. There's much more room for corruption too. I've worked with Indian tech firms for a few years, and despite the money saved, getting help from this side of the pond is almost always higher quality. Two main problems with India is that, for one, it's incredibly easy to get fake qualifications, so you can wind up hiring someone with an impressive resume but doesn't know shit. Secondly, they're just not good at problem solving. They have the book smarts, but they rarely know how to adapt their knowledge to real life situations where the answer is not so black and white, and trying to explain this to them is always a headache. I imagine this has to be some cultural thing holding them back, since they come from a high respect society where you don't question the people above you, so you just wind up with this long generational daisy chain of misinformation. So if you don't know, this was in regards to the H-1B visa situation from like not too long ago, a couple weeks back or so. And people were upset because it's like we're basically trading one immigration problem for what people perceive to be another. And I've heard certain things about Indian people immigrating to countries or first world countries. One thing that I see a lot of, if you go on like YouTube, you'll find a lot of videos of Indian people creating like these tutorials on how to like game the system, right? How to get free food in Canada, and how to apply for this visa or that. So they definitely have a strategy for how to get where they want to, and how to get the most out of those situations. And again, man, it's, to me, I think that people got to be very careful about allowing that sort of thing, because a lot of people who are looking to immigrate a lot of people who are looking to immigrate, they're doing it with the mindset of, oh, let me just take advantage of these various programs and things that they have in place for us and whatnot. And another thing that I hear a lot of too is like, if they get into a position of power, like if they become a manager, or if they become the hiring manager somewhere, then they're going to focus on and primarily hire other Indians, and so that becomes another problem, right? So now it's like, and these are things that don't necessarily make them bad people, but it's a cultural difference. And I think this is what the people who allow this sort of thing, what they don't think about, and really they don't need to care about, because they're not going to have to work at fucking Costco. They're not going to be working at a gas station. So they don't care if the gas station has an Indian manager and then he only hires other Indian people. But these are the things that people have to be concerned about, because they take these aspects of their culture and then they bring them over with them. So to them, it's, they're probably not even consciously thinking of it like, oh, I'm just hiring my own people, fuck everybody else. It's probably not even like that. It's just, that's just what they know. That's their culture. It's their tendency to just practice just more in-group preference than what we're used to, having grown up in a more diverse culture where we try to look at least try, I'm not gonna say it's always the result, but we try to look at things in terms of a merit-based selection process. Like if I was a hiring manager somewhere, I would be looking at it in regards to, okay, who's the best person for the job? Not let me hire only black people. So Moonbase Monk says on the 2025 New Year's stream, something's still bothering me. How you have a 2-hour convo with a girl and only hear about her boyfriend once you ask her out? It's like she delayed it until she had to say it. Would you want your girl having 2-hour convos with dudes, especially talking about dating? Stay safe 2025. P.S. What's the beat in the intro? And then Bobby Barrows 7452 says they like attention. The beat is I think the beat is Science of the Mad, and it's from a song from the Robot Music 9003 album. The song is available on Patreon. But I mean, yeah, that's definitely kind of sketch. But you know, the thing is, oh, if you don't know what he's talking about, there was this girl that I've been seeing at the gym since I started going to the gym. Like, and so she works at the gym, and you know, when I first met her, I didn't really think much of her. She wasn't really my type or anything like that. But we had a couple situations. I think I told you guys this story one time, but there were some drunk guys in the gym one night, and she was kind of worried because she worked the late night shift by herself, and she was worried about confronting them. So she wanted me to stay and look after her while she confronted them. And so that happened, and then she was like really surprised that I actually stayed and watched her back. And ever since then, we were kind of like cool, and we would just talk every now and then. And she was also the girl that when I tried to get hired at the gym, she told me about the hiring manager and how nobody liked her and whatnot. So we were basically kind of cool. But recently, in like the past couple months, like the conversations that we would have, they got kind of longer, and I really started to get to know her, and I started to realize like, oh wait a minute, this girl is actually like pretty cool. And so I asked her if she wanted to hang out and watch anime, because we were having this long anime debate. And she said that she had a boyfriend, and I wasn't tripping on it. I wasn't upset about it or anything like that, because when I asked her, I was more so looking at it from like the friend perspective. Not saying that, you know, I wouldn't have taken it further than that had that door opened up. But that was kind of how I was looking at it. Kind of like if you just meet somebody. Like, for instance, I met this guy at the gym, and he's thinking about opening up like a martial arts school or some shit like that. And then so I got his number, right? It's that kind of thing, right? So, but still, obviously, even if I was coming at it from a friendly perspective, the fact that she has a boyfriend makes it inappropriate for us to do something like that. But what Moonbase is saying is that just the fact that she was willing to have those type of long conversations with me, that's not really appropriate enough. And look, I get it. I see it. But the thing is, with her, like, I'm not gonna say everybody, but a lot of people in the gym like her. Like, people like talking to her. Like, a lot of times when I go to the gym, there's somebody talking to her at the desk. So it's not like there was anything like unique that I was doing. She just does that. She talks to people, men, women. She's very smart, and she knows how to carry a conversation very well. Now, some would say, you know, if you have a boyfriend, you should probably drop that a little bit sooner than what she did. But again, I don't look too much into it, because that's really just her personality. Like, she's very friendly, she's very smart, and she knows how to hold a conversation. So if you ever go in there, you'll probably see her talking to somebody at the desk or somebody in the gym, because people in there just really like her. And so Janelle Guide 3866 says, on the generational curse of the Black broken home, part 2, I can agree with this for the most part. I would say that women's experience is different to a certain degree, depending on development and attraction. Women need guidance from men and women on dating and sex. I was lucky that I didn't receive that much sexual attention at a young age, and I also grew up in a 2-parent household. I'm glad to hear another perspective about the sexual discipline for women, and that we tend to have more temptation. Thank you, Janelle Guild. Yeah, you know, the thing is, when we have these conversations about the issues between black men and black men and black women in our community, a lot of times I think guys come at it just from a very harsh perspective, right? Just putting all the blame and all the fault on women. But I don't think we really take into consideration enough the difficulty of making the right decisions at a young age, when you don't have the guidance, when you don't have the right influences, when you have a lot of temptation. And you know me, one thing about me is that, you know, even though, like I said in the video, I deserve credit for the fact that I did make conscious decisions not to prioritize dating and chase after women and give a fuck about the peer pressure to do so, it was really made easy by the fact that as a man, you have to go get the pussy. It's not going to come to you. Like, that's one of the most important parts of what allowed me to not make the same mistakes that a lot of guys made in my community. And girls, they don't have that luxury. Girls don't have the luxury of, being protected from that just by the simple fact that guys aren't going to come to them, because guys are going to come to them. And so I just think it's harder for women without a doubt, because they have to deal with a lot of temptation. And it's not just the average or the regular dudes coming after them. They got the most attractive guys in the school, the players, the ballers, the athletes. Like, just imagine being like a nerdy, weird guy in high school, and the head cheerleader is approaching you, and other girls, and the cute girl, the big titty goth girl, the big booty black girl. All of them are taking an interest, or enough of them are taking an interest in you. Girls, that's the type of shit that girls got to deal with that I think guys don't really think about when we have this conversation. So we are really in a fortunate position that we don't have to deal with as much temptation at a time in our life when we're the most vulnerable, the way that women do. Women really need structure and guidance and self-discipline in a way that the average guy, quite frankly, doesn't need. Because again, the average guy, you got to go chase after the girls anyway. So that right there is kind of a limiting factor in you making those mistakes. And so Jamal Garrett 8370 says on the same video, correlation is not the same as causation. I think your analysis is incomplete. You can't have an encompassing conversation just addressing moral failures. You have to include mass incarceration, redlining, globalization, etc. And this is a good point too. I've tried to sum things up into a 2-part video. It's definitely more aspects that go into this situation. Like he mentioned, one that's important is, mass incarceration, a lot of black men being locked up, and what that can do as far as like, creating broken homes. Now, to be fair, a lot of black men getting broken up because of black men doing dumb shit, right? But at the same time, you do have things like racial profiling and black men. Like, I forgot the exact statistic, but it's pretty alarming. But the statistic had to do with the amount of black men that were found to have received a guilty verdict wrongly, right? So stuff like that. It's definitely deeper than what I was able to get into with those with the 2-part video there. But for sure, whatever other factor or element you want to bring to the table to discuss, I'm all open for it. I just tried to make a more straightforward video, just taking a simplistic approach to discussing a significant issue in the black community. Moonbase Monk says, it's been a while since we got heartfelt Marco, man. R.I.P. Friender. Rest in peace, Friender. Friender. Oh yeah, he says it's on the universal curse of the black broken home too. Good point about the girls not having a chance, but I have no sympathy. Us males grow up without a clue about female nature, while they have constant exposure to us and still refuse to have discernment, and the stakes are so much higher for them. So Moonbase is like, fuck them. But one thing that women do have, and he makes a decent point here, is that I think women learn quicker than men do through experience, because they're more likely to have those experiences growing up, like as far as like dating and having boyfriends and, talking to the opposite sex on the phone, a lot of stuff like that. So they start to learn about male nature probably a lot faster than guys will learn about female nature, or at least the average guy that isn't going to be doing a lot of dating, and especially a guy like myself, that was completely excluded from dating when I was in, middle school and high school and things like that. So that's one of the advantages that they do have. But I still think that overall, women have it worse because of the level of temptation that they have to deal with. But like he said, one thing about women too is that they will refuse to practice discernment when it comes to mate selection. So it's like, if you're a teenager and then you're choosing to be with the wrong type of guy, that's one thing. But a lot of women, they take that into their adulthood where they still want to date the scammer. They still want to date the game banger, the drug dealer, the guy that just got, like, they take a lot of those selection tendencies into their adulthood. And that's where I tend to lose sympathy. But, you know, as far as women as teenagers when they're young, again, I have to be sympathetic because I think back to really just how naive and quite frankly dumb I was at that age. And I couldn't imagine that I would have been making the right decisions as far as like choosing the type of girl to be with at that age. And girls have to make those decisions at a time where they really don't know much better, especially if they don't have the proper guidance. And then on top of that, the environment that a lot of us grow up in, it tends to normalize certain characters, you know, certain behaviors. If you grow up in like a middle class neighborhood or the suburbs, then those type of like sketchy, again, little gang banging, drug dealing boys, they might stand out in the wrong type of way. But I think that a lot of us growing up in poor inner city communities and projects and shit, those are the cool guys. So that's another thing too, like just how our environment props up the wrong type of man and women as being, you know, cool and admirable. And so on the first part of the generational curse to the Black broken home, haha, with a story mark says, I remember a year or two ago you were talking about helping her with her homework and now she is pregnant. It's unbelievable, really. Man, you guys don't even know the half of it. You guys don't even know the half of it. I mean, I gave you guys the abridged version. I mean, if you want to talk about somebody changing overnight, man, it's really mind-blowing. And it's one of those things that makes you realize what fathers go through and how painful it's got to be. Because I'm just an uncle and I'm hurt over that. But imagine being a father, and I'm telling you, like, when you see a child that is going down the wrong path and you can't connect with them, you can't reach their mind, man, like that is a very depressing feeling because you know that they are just speeding towards turmoil and problems and, you know, sometimes complete self-destruction. But it's a terrible feeling, man, like I said. But, you know, that's you know, when you transitioning from a child into a teenager, it's a very problematic stage of our development and our lives, you know, because I had my own problems. Like, I didn't have to worry about girls, but I had my own problems, you know, as a teenager and especially becoming a young adult. So it's not like I was immune to it. I just had a different set of issues that I had to deal with. But yeah, man, it happened so quick. It happened so quick. But then at the same time, you know, you start to kind of see the signs too. Like, it's not completely overnight, but it does happen very fast. It happens so fast. But you see a couple red flags here and there. But for me, I can't believe like how much was going on without us knowing, right? That's what really got me. Because like I said, I gave you guys the abridged version. Like, there was more going on. I mean, well, I'm not even gonna get into that. And so on the part 2 of the generational curse of the Black broken home, AccuDot says there will never be a perfect time or person to have kids with. If life is good, then go for it. People have done it for thousands of years in terrible conditions and they pulled through. Don't let happiness get you. And then Epic Minecraft Fail says, I don't understand. Are you promoting or discouraging single parenthood? And then he responds, I don't know where you got the single part from. I'm saying to not make the perfect the enemy of the good. You will always find reasons to find a partner unfit for parenthood. The time's not right for child rearing or the prospects ill for child success and healthy growth. Most times you just have to risk it. Life is a knife fight against an enemy that does not bleed. If people would just give up and not try when things get tough, then none of us would be here. Most of our ancestors were not raised in good conditions. You know, I'm just going to have to disagree. I think this is just because I've had other people come at me with this line of thinking, and I just have to say we have to agree to disagree. I'm not content to say, well, I'm going to raise kids in bad conditions. I'm going to raise kids with a woman that clearly is not going to be a good mother and has bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder, or she already has a kid by 2 other niggas. I'm not doing that. I'm not content to say, well, I'm going to have kids and I'm living with my mom, and so the kid's going to be the burden on not just myself, but also my mom. Like that. Look, I'm not saying that the situation has to be perfect, but what we see in the black community is beyond unacceptable. You don't have to have $1 million in the bank. Your husband ain't got to be, or your boyfriend ain't got to be perfect. Your girl doesn't have to be perfect. But we're talking about a completely dysfunctional environment where when you look at the rates of STDs, homicides, high school dropout, obesity, health, like, dude, the black community is in a fucking crisis. Like, it's not a game. Like, this is not something to just scoff at and be like, well, just, and again, if you don't care, if you don't give a fuck about the conditions in which your kids are raised and them having to struggle and then being completely behind the ball in regards to their peers that are going to private schools, that have parents that can invest money into them being able to play hockey and basketball and getting AAU programs and private tutor. If you're content with that, then look, go for it. But I'm not content with that, because you can say that life is a knife fight against the enemy that does not bleed. But another fight that we have to deal with in life is against each other and the competition with each other, and I'm not content to allow my children to be way behind other kids because I just want to go ahead and say, well, fuck it, just struggle through it and be broke like me. I'm just not. I'm not. But different people just look at it. I guess some people just don't give a fuck. I care. If I have kids, I want them to grow up in, doesn't have to be ideal conditions, but I want them to grow up in good conditions where I know that, I'm man enough to deal with the responsibility, and that the woman I'm with, I can at least look at her and say that she will be a good mother. And, that's really what it comes down to for me. Epic Minecraft Fail says on the same video, what's really sad is after they get pumped and dumped by the first few guys, as they age, they would try to find someone with stability to be with. This is probably how many of us will end up. Now, that's a story as old as time. We know a lot of girls in this situation, a lot of black girls, they grow up being attracted to, like I said earlier, the scammer, the thug, the drug dealer, or just honestly, some guys just fucking bums, right? And it's not until they get older that their priorities change. And then they start to realize that, it's better to be with a guy who is more stable. I mean, really, it's basically alpha fucks, beta bucks. And some people might say that it's just part of the natural maturing process that a woman has to go through. And even men, to a certain extent, men sometimes have to go through this as well, where they realize, I can't just be picking girls based on the size of their butt. I need a girl with a mind too. But, as far as how this pertains to women, we see this a lot. And I think the dangerous thing about it is that a lot of times, even if you want to, let bygones be bygones and say, you know what, you were young and dumb and you were interested in the wrong type of men. Now you know better. The problem a lot of times is that the switch to desiring a different type of guy is not based on their natural type changing. Like, their natural type a lot of times is always going to be that first type. And we call it the imprint in the black community. We say that, with a lot of these women, they're imprinted by, these degenerate criminal type men, and that becomes their forever type. They might get to a point where they consciously understand that type of guy is not the best as far as like raising a family. But at the end of the day, that's always going to be their primary type. And so the issue with a guy who fits the role of being like more stable is that you might get that woman, But that relationship is always going to be in jeopardy because if she isn't satisfied on both ends, maybe she's satisfied on the stability side, but if she's not satisfied on the side of raw attraction, real lust, and desire to be with you, that can create problems in the relationship as well. So you got to be careful about that. You know, if I ever get with a girl and she tells me that she was into thugs or gang bangers or anything like that, I'm not fucking with her because I can't fill those shoes. I can't live up to that. That's not who I am. You know, I could never satisfy a girl. If that's how she started, more than likely that's what she still likes, especially at my age. If I met a girl like that, she's just trying to pivot to, you know, somebody that's going to be more stable and less problematic, but that doesn't change what her natural type is. So on the same video, but part one, American Lord says the broken black family is not a curse. It's a concerted effort on the past of many different groups, both political and corporate, as well as including groups from other countries who have a vested interest. Is it vested or vested in a broken black household as well? Many powerful people do everything in their power to keep so-called black people separated as individuals. I'm not saying black people aren't also at fault. I mean, if you keep falling for the okie dokie, that's on you, right? I don't mean to take anything away from the video, but when you say curse, it makes it sound as if our date is to forever bound in the box they try to fit us into. And then DJ Livy says, if you believe in the Bible, then it absolutely is a curse. Now, when I call it a curse, I don't mean that like literally. I don't mean it in a sense of like, oh, you know, granddad upset the local witch and she put a spell on him and made some brew and put it in his spaghetti, right? And then the curse spread throughout the community. I don't mean it like it's literally like some supernatural shit going on. But I'm sure we've all heard the phenomenon of the black broken home be described as a curse. And the reason why it's usually called a curse is because the way it just seems to happen generation to generation. You know, it's like if you look at Inuyasha for example, you know, the anime, there's the character Moroku, and he had the curse of the wind tunnel, which was a hole in his hand that would suck up anything around him. He inherited that curse from his father. That's kind of how people look at the black broken home, is that we inherit the same conditions that were passed down to us from our parents, or parents, I should say. So I'm not meaning it like it's a literal curse. But again, a good point, because it's not just like, I give you the perfect example here. And this is documented. When you look at situations like how the CIA brought cocaine into black communities, and that cocaine was being sold, and that money was used to fund, I think it was a war in Nicaragua. That's a hard one to say. Nicaragua? I've never had to say that out loud. But basically, part of the reason why the black community had such an intense crack epidemic was because cocaine was literally brought into our neighborhoods by the CIA in order to fund their wars and different projects that they were doing. So there are definitely elements outside of our control that contributed to what we're dealing with today, right? So that has to be laid out as well. But I'm looking at it more so from like the perspective of how we can hold ourselves accountable, because even if there are outside forces that had a role in this, and for sure they did, you know, I think at the same time, as black people, we gotta be aware of what's happening directly because of our acts. Like, we have to wake up to the situation that we're in and try to figure out how we can uplift ourselves out of it. You know, because at this point, a lot of the things that led to the situation that I'm talking about in this video, a lot of the players that could be held responsible are either dead or no longer relevant. You know, there's really nobody left to point the finger at anymore as far as like what caused us to be in this situation. I think we're kind of at the point where we just got to accept this is where we're at, and we got to be conscientious of what's going on and try to figure out how we can get ourselves out of it. The Generational Curse of the Black Broken Home Part 1. Oh, I had that backwards. Heavily Sinju 9948 says on the Generational Curse of the Black Broken Home Part 1. This is a popular video. The thing about it is that the curse is really just a numbers game. Dudes who have a lot of kids shoot their shots often. It's all they spend their time doing. They're always available and always in the mix. Street dudes don't got no job. They ain't studying. Home situation ain't good. So all they have is friends who doing the same stuff. What else are they doing besides sliding in DMs? Trying to find that one girl with the door crack. Like your niece, unfortunately. Damn. That one hurt. Telling girls to choose better hardly ever works. You've got to put them in environments where that's not the only option available to them. And church, where you're expected to sit quietly with your family, is not the place to naturally form a relationship, at least not easily. So this guy brings up some very good points. Thanks, Patrick. You got the Patrick avatar there. But one thing that I've been thinking about too, and you guys are gonna probably say that this is making me sound like a simp or something, and that's fair, but I'm just throwing this idea out here, right? We have so much to say about women choosing, Pookie and Ray Ray. That's a black term. These are like made up black characters that are meant to represent, the thugs, the scammers, the gangbangers. We have so much to say about that. But when you think about it, going back to elementary school, middle school, high school, those were the guys that were the most active when it came to chasing after girls. And so maybe part of the problem is that the guys, the good guys, the guys who would go on to, not be criminals or weren't involved in the street life, the guys who were getting good grades, maybe if those guys were more aggressive or assertive when it came to approaching women, maybe girls wouldn't have ended up in those situations. Now, again, I'm just throwing that out there. Don't give me a simp card. But it's like he said, those are the guys that tend to be the most aggressive when it comes to chasing after girls, especially at that age. Now, see, what happens is a lot of the so-called good men during that time, they either will not be approaching women at all, they'll be too afraid to, too nervous, lacking in confidence, and it's not until they get older that they start to actually, push those boundaries, right? You see a lot of guys tap into the red pill space, the manosphere, to try to get advice. That's why the PUA industry blew up, and the PUA industry kind of, got kicked out of the spotlight and was replaced with the manosphere and the red pill. But the similarity there is that a lot of guys who failed with women when they were younger look to those spaces for advice. And so what I'm saying is, a lot of times the guys who may have been a better option for those girls, they aren't even actively in the game at that age. But one thing about the street dudes is that they are always in the mix, just like you said. And I always say this, I've never heard of a virgin thug. It don't exist, because that's part of the lifestyle. There's nothing to do but to get into some shit. You're either doing drugs, selling drugs, hanging out, chasing after hoes, getting in trouble. Like, that's the type of lifestyle that they're living. Somebody like me, I'm in the house playing Final Fantasy. Like, dude, I get off the bus, I go get me some batteries for my Game Boy and some snacks. I go home, I'm playing Final Fantasy, Pokemon Ruby. I'm watching Magoozy, Toonami. I'm jacking off. I go to sleep. I go back to school and repeat the cycle, right? And every now and then hang out with my friends who were also guys who weren't really aggressively chasing after women. But I digress. But still, a very good point that guys got to understand too is like those guys, the Pookies and the Ray Rays, like they are active. And they don't stop, they don't sleep. So very tough competition, and he mentioned the church Because I see some people say that, the best place or a option for finding a good woman or girl is in the church. But, that's not always reliable either. A lot of times girls in the church, yeah, they go to church, but that doesn't mean that they really live according to the teachings of the Bible. And that's because, for instance, I know that one of my friends growing up, one of his first girlfriends, she was in the church when they were young. I think that's how they met. But as they got older, she ended up like selling pussy in Florida or something. Right now, she ended up settling down with a simp. But the point is like, the church isn't always a reliable place to do that either, because a lot of people in church, quite frankly, are normies and they just do their dirt on the low. So, and the church that I went to growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, that was definitely not the place, because Jehovah's Witness church, the one I went to, was mostly like older people. So on the why I would most likely die a virgin video, For Your Game says, not with this new J-O-B. So he's basically saying that now that I got a job, I'm more likely to get a girlfriend. But I have to disagree. Having had this job for a couple months, I have not noticed any change whatsoever in attention for women. Like, no new avenues or doors have really opened up as far as like girls are concerned. Now, even though I got this job, I'm enjoying it, I'm making some money, overall, I haven't really seen how it's supposed to get me more girls. I make my money, I go out to eat, I buy some clothes. Like, definitely, I'm definitely looking a little better. I'm looking a little cleaner. I'm doing all right for myself. But what I've come to realize when it comes to getting girls, nothing is more important than talking to girls. Like, that's the most important thing. When you're talking about things like looks and money, like the kind of money you get from a job or, being handsome like me, these things really only do the work for you when it's in the extreme. If money is going to be the reason why you get girls, you got to be doing more than working where I'm working, right? If looks are going to be the reason why you get girls, then you got to be more than just kind of handsome and fit like I am. Like, it's only, not saying that you can't utilize what I have. I'm saying that what I have isn't enough for it to work for me. I still have to go through the humiliation ritual of actually talking to girls and asking them out, shooting shots and shit like that. Just having a job hasn't changed that much to where now girls are looking. Because the thing is, like, girls don't know any more about me now than they did then. I might be dressing a little bit better because I can, buy clothes now. But that's about it. It's not like girls know, oh, he got a job or he got like, and this is the thing too. If having a job was going to give me an advantage with women in any way whatsoever, it would be just working with women and having the opportunity to get to know women naturally, organically, in an environment where we're forced to interact with each other. Because you guys know I'm not a shot shooter. I'm not shooting half court shots and full court shots trying to get girls. I'm not doing it. It's like what I told you about that girl at the gym previously. I felt comfortable asking her to hang out because we had already built up kind of a relationship before that. We had talked for hours before that. So I got to know her first and she got to know me. I felt comfortable enough asking her. I'm not the type of guy that's comfortable asking out random women. That's not my thing. If having a job was going to give me any advantage, it would be the girls that I would be working with. Now, the problem with the jobs that I've had, because this is my second job, I've never worked in an environment where I was around young, available women ever. Like, most of the people that I work with are way older than me. Like old. Like, I work with a lot of old people. There's only one person I work with that's younger than me. Literally, and it's a dude. So, having this job, I love it. I'm enjoying it. I'm making my money. I'm saving my money. I'm doing my thing. But I haven't seen how it's going to help me in dating at all, because life is still mostly the same outside of just the things I can do for myself with this money. And maybe, again, going out to eat here and there, going to the cafe. You know, me and Kayla had went to a Mexican restaurant while we were recording a music video, you know, stuff like that. But, you know, outside of that, like, it's not providing the kind of extreme finances that are really going to be a game changer to where girls can be like, oh yeah, girl, oh yeah, Chad Marco. We ain't there yet, guys. And so on the generational curse of the Black broken home, part 1, Pantsu Monster says, thing is, marriage was not practiced in the white sense in Africa prior to colonization. We're applying white standards to black people, and that's not fair. And then Moonbase Monk says, from 1890 through 1940, black women tended to marry earlier than white women did. And in the mid 20th century, first marriage timing was similar for black and white women. 11 in 1950, black women aged 40-44 were actually more likely to have ever married than were white women of the same age. Source, National Library of Medicine. Keep your ooga booga science on 4chan. And so Looney Bruh 2824 says, also traditional marriage was very common in Africa prior to colonization. People like this don't actually care about African history and just like to use a historical nonsense to make every excuse to continue on with their degenerate behavior and beliefs. Let's keep Africans out of the conversation. This is a Western issue. And then Watashi Watsu W6U says, marriage has always been expensive and only for the rich class. This whole thing about marriage is based on status approval. And back in the days of colonial times, watch women that worked in bars and stuff, people didn't care or give a damn if they was married, and they didn't bother to ask. And this is being projected into this topic in a very disgusting manner. It's just as racist as the opposite. Not only did black women not have access to marriage, black women weren't even regarded as human beings. So I know this is all a lie. And then, so Pantsu responded? Did I get to? Oh yeah, he said, Mr. 85, black behavior in a heavily regulated rather than a free environment isn't indicative of the black biosphere. The black biosphere. And then DJ Libby 46 says, how is marriage practiced differently in Africa? So Pantsu Monster was saying that essentially black people don't have a natural inclination towards the white standard or family structure. And Moonbase brings up the point that black women tended to marry more often than white women did. Like, yeah, the rate of I think black broken homes were significantly lower before a certain point. Let me see if I can find the thing real quick, the statistic real fast. Give me a second. Yeah, so this right here says how welfare destroyed black families. We talked about this on the podcast. In 1960, before the welfare state expansion, 22% of black children were raised with only one parent. By 1985, after the welfare state expansion, 67% of black children were raised with only one parent or no parents. By 2016, after nearly 60 years of welfare, 73% of black children were born to unmarried mothers. So even if the black biospirit was not conducive for the white familial structure, or whatever you want to call it, we figured it out. we adjusted, we adapted to it quite well. But it seems like it was the welfare state that played a much bigger role in where we are today. Now, I've had this conversation with people, and they'll oftentimes bring up how, you know, it's not just the welfare state. There are other factors as well, and I agree. But I do think that the welfare state is one of the biggest factors as far as like the state of the black community and our tendency to have more broken homes than intact homes. But yeah, even if you want to say that it's not in our biospirit, I never heard that before. I think there was definitely a time period that we can look at where you can say that we were, we were doing quite well in that regard. We figured it out, we adapted to it, but I think there were other factors later down the line that resulted in where we are today. And so, haha, what a story mark says on the It Finally Happened video, Chad, massive congratulations on the job, man. For your sake, I hope it is a relatively simple type job where you can make some good money, but also have the time to create videos and stream as well. From going to NEET for such a long time to a full-time job would be such a crazy change and really elevate your life. It would be great if you can still live at home and stack up money. That's exactly what I've been doing, though. Life has been good. I adapted very well to working this job. Even though it's full time, I must say I have weekends off. And I think that is the saving grace of it all. The fact that, I work Monday through Friday and then I'm off on the weekend. It feels a lot like school, except I'm getting paid for it. So overall, it hasn't been too demanding. It's definitely a challenge finding the time to do everything that I want to do, as far as like balancing work with the chores and the things that need to get done at home, with working out and fitness, with music and making videos and streaming, and also the things that I want to do personally, hanging out and whatnot, just sleeping in bed, watching. It's a challenge, don't get me wrong, but overall my life feels very balanced right now. Like, it's challenging, but it's balanced to where as long as I stay focused and I make good decisions and manage my time right, I can do everything that I need to do. So having this job has been more of an advantage than a disadvantage, bar none. And like I said, it's been an enjoyable time for me. But my main thing is I want to make sure that I make the most of it, because I've had so many friends who have had jobs and had jobs for years. And then when it came time where they got fired or they quit or had to change jobs, they had nothing to show for it. And that's what I want to avoid more than anything. I want to make sure that however long I have this job, I have something to show for it. That's why, I'm starting me up a little savings and whatnot, because I don't know how long I'm going to have the job. But I want to be able to say that I made the most of it. And this was just something that I felt was missing from my home life anyway. I don't feel bad about living at home with my mom, but I always felt bad about not contributing enough. And the fact that now I'm able to give my mom money, save money, and spend money on the things that I want and need, it's been a fantastic experience, and I've been enjoying it immensely. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and I will see you on the next. So, Johnny.